Hello there, you're following World News. I'm Yassine Rikti, and here's what's making the headlines. At the end of his visit to China, US President Donald Trump announced that he had secured what he described as fantastic trade agreements with Chinese President Xi Jinping. President Xi, for his part, stated that the two countries had established a constructive relationship enshrined in strategic stability. Regarding developments in the US-Iran truce, Washington and Beijing affirmed their shared desire to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran stressed that conflicting messages from the US were complicating the negotiations and confirmed its readiness to allow more vessels to pass through the strait. On the 78th anniversary of the Nakba, Palestine called for its recognition as a crime of ethnic cleansing. President Abbas stated that security and peace cannot be achieved without achieving the rights of the Palestinian people, while Hamas affirmed that the occupation holds no legitimacy or sovereignty over Palestinian lands. Welcome back to the details of our program. First up in our news, US President Donald Trump said on Friday that he had struck fantastic trade deals with Chinese President Xi Jinping during their second meeting in Beijing. While touring the gardens of Junhanyai, the Chinese Central Leadership Compound, Trump said the talks had produced several positive outcomes, referring to what he described as fantastic trade deals.
In 1949, the leadership have moved to this conference.
This has been an incredible visit. I think a lot of good has come of it. We've made some fantastic trade deals, great for both countries. He's a man I respect greatly. Become really a friend. We've known each other now 11 years, almost 12 years. It's a long time. And we've settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to settle. And the relationship is a very strong one.
For his part, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that US President Donald Trump's visit to China was historic, noting that the two sides had established a new bilateral relationship based on constructive strategic stability. During his meeting with US President Donald Trump after a tour of the Junhanyai Gardens, the Chinese Central Leadership Compound, Xi added that both sides had built a constructive relationship of strategic stability and reached numerous understandings on cooperation.
This visit is historic and significant. We have established a new bilateral relationship, or rather, a relationship built on strategic stability. This visit can be described as important, and we have reached several understandings regarding the outcomes of our cooperation.
US President Donald Trump said he spoke extensively with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping about Taiwan during his visit to Beijing.
Nuclear weapon. He said that very strongly. They cannot have a nuclear weapon, and he wants. President Xi and I talked a lot about Taiwan. He thinks they cannot have anything to do with what they're doing. I mean, he's against very much what they're doing. We talked about Taiwan, we talked about Iran a lot, and I think we have a very good understanding with both. On Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation, and I heard him out.
Are you going to change your wording?
No, I didn't make a comment on it. I heard him out.
US President Donald Trump warned Taiwan against taking any steps toward declaring independence. In a television interview with Fox News broadcast on Friday, Trump said he does not want anyone to proclaim independence, adding that the United States does not support either side and has not yet decided on arms sales to Taiwan. Beijing announced that Chinese President Xi Jinping will pay a state visit to the United States this fall at the invitation of US President Donald Trump. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told reporters on Friday that Xi is expected to visit the White House on September 24th at Trump's invitation.
Very quickly, and we're going to have
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that Beijing and Washington have agreed to continue implementing our previously reached agreements and to establish two councils for trade and investment. A statement from the Chinese Foreign Ministry quoted Wang Yi as saying that the two countries' delegations agreed to address each other's concerns over access to agricultural markets and to promote the growth of bilateral trade through reciprocal tariff reduction. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said he believes China will become a larger buyer of U.S. crude oil following disruptions to global energy supplies since the start of the war in Iran. In an interview with CNBC, when asked whether China would increase its purchases of U.S. crude oil, Wright said he expects Beijing to raise its oil imports from the United States, especially after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Secretary also predicted that Washington would increase oil supplies to China via Alaska.
I think they will. There is significant interest from Asian buyers in getting more oil from Alaska as well. As you know, our oil is currently coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. We will see more of it going to China, but in the not too distant future, we will see more oil coming out of Alaska.
The International Monetary Fund welcomed initial positive talks between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping, saying easing trade tensions between the two largest economies is a boost to the global economy. The IMF warned the world economy is heading toward weaker growth due to the Middle East conflict and oil prices above $100 per barrel, with growth expected to slow to 2.5% this year. It added that higher energy prices are fueling inflation and said it is considering support for affected countries while cautioning against broad fuel subsidies that could strain finances and increase oil demand. China's foreign ministry said on Friday that a comprehensive and lasting ceasefire in the Middle East and the reopening of shipping routes must be achieved as soon as possible. It stressed the need to reopen sea routes in response to international calls and highlighted the importance of a swift and lasting ceasefire to restore peace and stability in the Middle East and the Gulf region. The ministry also said that a quick solution regarding Iran would benefit the United States, Iran, and regional countries. US President Donald Trump said he would not have much more patience with Iran and urged it to reach an agreement with Washington. In an interview on Fox News, Hannity aired Thursday evening, he said his patience was running out and warned he would not remain patient any longer. Donald Trump suggested Xi Jinping may be willing to help de-escalate tensions between Tehran and Washington. No formal breakthrough emerged, but the conversation itself revealed how deeply the Iran crisis is reshaping the fragile balance between the world's two great powers. Here's Nabil Khazini's full report.
For 3 days in Beijing, the world's most consequential rivalry briefly paused. Behind the spectacle of Donald Trump's summit with Xi Jinping stood a far more urgent reality, a widening war around Iran that now threatens energy markets, global trade, and the fragile balance of international power itself. Trump arrived in China at a challenging moment. His administration remains consumed by the escalating confrontation with Iran, while fears grow that instability in the Strait of Hormuz could trigger economic shockwaves across the world. And that is precisely why this meeting mattered. Beijing is Iran's largest oil consumer, deeply tied to the flow of energy through the Gulf and increasingly central to any attempt to prevent the crisis from spiraling further. For Washington, Chinese cooperation has quietly become strategic necessity. That reality shaped nearly every major conversation between Trump and Xi.
President Xi would like to see a deal made. He would like to see a deal made. And he did offer, he said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help. Because,
he did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him. But he said, I would love to be a help if I can be of any help whatsoever. I want to thank you very much.
Trump declared that both sides agreed Iran cannot have nuclear weapons and said Xi wanted the Strait of Hormuz reopened as quickly as possible. He later suggested China may even help push Tehran toward de-escalation, while hinting that Washington could reconsider sanctions on Chinese firms buying Iranian oil. But beneath the language of cooperation, the differences remained unmistakable. The United States sees Iran primarily as a security threat. China sees the crisis through the lens of stability, trade, and economic survival. Nearly half of China's crude oil imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz. A wider regional war could not simply threaten Beijing's energy supply. It could destabilize global markets and weaken the export-driven economy on which China still depends. While the US side emphasized potential leverage, China's public messaging focused on de-escalation.
受到地区国家和国际社会欢迎。
Now that the door of dialogue has been opened, it should not be shut again. It's important to study the momentum in easing the situation, keep to the direction of political settlement, engage in dialogue and consultation, and reach a settlement on the Iranian nuclear issue and other issues that accommodates the concerns of all parties.
No dramatic breakthrough emerged from the summit. No agreement on Iran was announced. No clear framework for cooperation materialized. Yet the significance of the meeting lies elsewhere. At a moment when wars, trade disputes, and great power competition are increasingly colliding, Beijing and Washington appear to recognize the same uncomfortable truth. Both may still need one another to prevent a far more dangerous future.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that conflicting messages from the United States are the main obstacle to progress in ongoing talks between both sides. In comments to Indian television on Friday, Araghchi said Tehran has engaged in diplomatic efforts with Washington, but noted that the process remains difficult due to what he described as contradictory signals coming from the American side.
For this ministerial meeting of BRICS and for the success of this meeting.
At the BRICS meeting, what is
or another problem is as I said, contradictory messages, which has made us reluctant about the real intentions of Americans in these negotiations. We are in doubt about their seriousness, but the moment we feel that they are serious and they are ready for a fair and balanced deal, we certainly proceed in the course of negotiations.
The Iranian foreign minister said Iran is not responsible for destabilizing security in the Strait of Hormuz, noting that the strait remains open to friendly countries if the war ends to ensure full maritime security.
As far as we are concerned, the Strait of Hormuz is open and all vessels can pass except the vessels belonged to those countries who are in war with us, who are fighting with us.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the United States has informed Tehran it is ready to continue talks aimed at ending the war in the Middle East. Despite President Donald Trump's earlier rejection of Iran's response to an American proposal to resolve the conflict, speaking at a press conference in New Delhi on Friday, Araghchi said the U.S. rejection referred to earlier statements, adding that Iran has since received new messages from Washington expressing a desire to continue negotiations and maintain communication between both sides. Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar said 11 Pakistani and 20 Iranian nationals have been repatriated after their vessels were seized by the United States in international waters. In a post on X on Friday, Dar said the Pakistani nationals were deported via Singapore to Bangkok, Thailand, before continuing to Islamabad later that evening, while the Iranian nationals were en route back to Iran. Six Lebanese were killed and several others wounded in Zionist airstrikes targeting areas in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese National News Agency said on Friday that Zionist warplanes carried out a two-wave drone strike on a car near Husseiniye in Nabatiyeh, killing 2 young men and injuring 2 others. It also reported that the death toll from a previous strike overnight in the town of Haruf had risen to 4, including members of the same family. Lebanese Hezbollah said its forces targeted a Zionist forces barracks near the coastal city of Nahariya in northern occupied Palestine. In a statement on Friday, Hezbollah said the Liman barracks north of Nahariya was struck with a salvo of drone attacks, adding that it also carried out operations against an Israeli command post, 2 bulldozers, 3 troop concentrations, and an Israeli force in southern Lebanon, including in Hula and Beit Jbeil. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that what the Palestinian people have endured is not only a historical tragedy, but an ongoing crime of ethnic cleansing and genocide aimed at uprooting Palestinians from their land. In a statement marking the 78th anniversary of the Nakba on Thursday, it said the Nakba was a Zionist plan that began with the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, the destruction of hundreds of villages, and the perpetration of massacres. It added that it continues through the war in the Gaza Strip, as well as settlement expansion and killings in the occupied West Bank and Al-Quds. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said that anyone who believes security and peace can be achieved without the realization of Palestinian rights, the independence of the state, and the end of the occupation is mistaken. In a speech delivered on his behalf by Ambassador Riyad Mansour on Friday at the UN headquarters in New York during a commemoration of the 78th anniversary of the Nakba, he affirmed that Palestinians have the right to live freely and with dignity in their homeland and to defend their existence and national rights.
Reviving this commemoration is an acknowledgement of the historical injustice committed against the Palestinian people, who are deeply rooted in their land, and it is a step in the right direction toward correcting that injustice. It also affirms that our proud and steadfast people cannot be ignored, nor can their inherent right to self-determination, independence, return, and sovereignty over their land and the land of their ancestors, like all other nations, be denied. No one in this world, and I repeat, no one, has the authority to decide the fate of the land of Palestine except its own people, and whoever believes that security and peace can be achieved without restoring the rights of the Palestinian people, ensuring the independence of their state, and ending the Israeli occupation of it, no matter how long it takes, is deluded.
واجتثاث الاحتلال الإسرائيلي منها وإن طال الزمن.
The Islamic resistance movement Hamas said the Zionist occupation has no legitimacy or sovereignty over Palestinian land, regardless of how long it lasts or the scale of sacrifices, and called on the international community to condemn it and stop what it described as attacks on land, people and holy sites. In a statement on Friday marking the 78th anniversary of the Nakba, Hamas said the occupation government continues to violate the ceasefire agreement signed last October through bombing and targeting civilians, which it said has resulted in deaths of more than 850 Palestinians since it came into effect, calling it a violation of international law and conventions. Approximately 75,000 worshippers performed prayers at the Aqsa Mosque, according to the Palestinian news agency Al-Quds Governorate said tens of thousands of worshippers arrived from early morning while occupation forces imposed tight security measures around the area. It added that dozens of settlers stormed the Lions Gate and King Faisal Gate as troops deployed heavily around the old city and mosque entrances, closing both gates and restricting access for worshippers. Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf discussed with his Egyptian counterpart Badr Abdelati brotherly relations and cooperation between the two countries and ways to strengthen and develop them in line with the directives of their leaders and upcoming bilateral engagements. According to a statement from the Algerian Foreign Ministry on Friday, Attaf and Abdelati also exchanged views on developments in the shared regional neighborhood as well as the Middle East and Gulf region during a phone call, reaffirming their commitment to consultation and coordination on issues of common interest. Sheikh Mohammed Al-Mahi Ibrahim Nias has begun a visit to Algeria. In a statement upon his arrival at Algiers International Airport on Friday, expressed pride in visiting Algeria, saying it remains a unique model of humanity in rejecting injustice and restoring dignity and honor. This is the end of our news bulletin. If you have missed any part of it, you can always check our social media platforms as well as our website. From me and from the rest of the team, thank you for tuning in. See you next week.